Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's Sunday Conversation right here on Big Country Politics. I am Manny Diaz. This week our special guest is Vance Boyd. He is a candidate for District 19 U.S. Congressman looking to challenge Mr. Jody Arrington. Mr. Vance Boyd, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us.
Well, thanks for having me in your studio. I look forward to a fun election cycle and ultimately a lot of issues to get raised to the forefront that have been ignored for way too long.
Gotcha. Well, before we get into the issues, because we have a lot of issues to talk about, tell me, who is Vance Boyd?
Well, I have a contracting business here in town. I was born and raised all but a few years of my life right here in West Texas, mostly Jones County. I have 3 grown sons. One's a coach in Fort Worth. One's going to Tech studying wildlife biology, and another son helps me with my business interest and is currently taking some classes. And like everybody else, I see where our country is and where our district has, in my opinion, been ignored for way too long, and it became time to step up.
So why enter the race so 2-part question here. Why enter the race for District 19 U.S. Congress? And certainly, why challenge an established incumbent candidate like Jody Arrington?
I think you could look at every problem we have and that we deal with and that becomes a frustration to the voters, and the common denominator is a career politician and the political class, especially our incumbent, who is detached from the real realities that people deal with here in West Texas. I doubt many have had to put off paying the electric bill so they could afford insurance. And that out of touch mentality seems to have been almost encouraged at some point. And it became time where I'm actually concerned about the future of this district and our country. The career political class who should be screaming from the rooftops to correct these obvious problems we have are silent, or they'll talk it to death, and meanwhile we're 3 years down the road and nothing's happened.
What would you say are some of those obvious problems?
The border, obviously, they talk about that, and the solution is right there. We have to have border security and accountability for when just the flood of drugs, the human trafficking, and again, there's no sense of urgency to stop it, which I can't. It kind of stuns me because there's nothing more abhorrent than drug overdoses and human trafficking.
Is there any, which we'll get into the border, because I think that's interesting you brought that up. This literally isn't your first rodeo in running for Congress. You were a professional bull rider for 18 years and a stuntman. You even have, a Screen Actors Guild card.
Yes, I've been in the Screen Actors Guild for a couple of decades.
So when we tie it to that type of thing, this isn't your first time out. So you ran for this position in 2019. Why continue down this journey? What did you learn from that? What do you intend to apply this time around?
Well, that was sort of an inspired moment, because it was like 3 days before the filing deadline, and I was kicking it around. And again, our incumbent moved to D.C. in 2017. He doesn't even live in the district anymore. And I think what's going on in this district and the concerns for the people in this district is the last thing on his mind. And so this time around, we put together a really good team of people that we all share the same vision. And it's, Congress has a 98% reelection rate, and it's not because they're all swell and doing a great job. It's because the apparatus to be a legitimate contender at this level requires a lot of resource and a lot of hours and a lot of enthusiastic volunteers.
Alrighty, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, more with Vance Boyd, candidate for District 19 U.S. Congress, right here on Big Country Politics.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
Well, welcome back to Big Country Politics. This is our Sunday conversation. We're joined by Mr. Vance Boyd. He is a candidate for District 19 U.S. Congress, looking to challenge Jody Arrington in the primary coming up in March. Mr. Boyd, you were talking about, as we were talking about in break, you were a professional bull rider. First and foremost, because that's a taxing job. Tell us about that. I mean, that's got to be something of interest to some people out there, the fact that you were able to last, the longevity of that, stick with that, and certainly power through all that. Tell us about that.
Well, it was got to live a life that most people just dream of, and it's a dangerous sport, obviously, but it's something, was very passionate about. I still am very passionate about it. It's probably one of the few, if probably the only sport where when you walk away, you're a little bit surprised, thankful, but surprised, and you do a little inventory every time you hit the ground.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you mentioned a number of issues on your website, vancewboyd.com. Is there a particular issue that you're really passionate about the most?
The first and foremost is sort of a broad brush stroke of, I feel like our 19th district is not getting the attention it deserves. I think we are blessed to live in this part of the country. We have our own culture. It's 33 counties. It's a huge district. And I think a lot of people outside the main population centers don't get the attention for their issues as I would hope. And primary to that is the rural hospitals that are struggling. The ones that have remained are under the rural emergency health new rules where they can't keep anybody more than 24 hours, and it just turns a functioning hospital with multiple rooms into a minor emergency clinic.
Well, let's segue into that. So saving local hospitals is another item on your agenda. How can that be done with you as the District 19 representative?
Well, when you are a U.S. congressman, you have a huge bullhorn that you can push towards state issues and hopefully get the state to help out a little bit more with the Medicare reimbursements. And one thing, I'm just peeling back the layers on it, is something our incumbent has come up with is this site neutral payments or access to cancer treatment. And it seems it's almost like clockwork. Whatever they name a piece of legislation, it does the opposite of what the title says. From what I've been reading and peeling back the layers, is it will be another devastating blow to rural hospitals, diverting some estimates 17.5% from those hospitals, billions, to physicians and their groups, which, that margin is not anything that a already struggling hospital can accommodate.
You've made mention about protecting food producers and that you will protect and champion West Texas food producers. Tell us about that. What is your plan? I couldn't believe this is allowed to stand this far, is country of origin labeling should be put on everything across the board, every agricultural product. And I think it was 2015, they eliminated those guidelines for beef and pork. I believe poultry is too now, where they don't have to be labeled the country of origin, which makes no sense to me. One statistic I read it was an article in a Missouri publication that broke down and analyzed it, said a producer took a cow-calf pair to the sale, earned around $518. In 2020, it dropped to $85. That's an 84% decrease in what is earned. And I know consumers aren't paying 84% less at the supermarket. Inflation is out of control, and this is one thing that should have been fixed a long time ago, and why our congressman has not pushed it when he claims to be the friend of the West Texas cattlemen. Well, I am a cattleman, and it affects me every time I take cattle to the sale barn. Abilene is roughly 5 hours and change from the Texas-Mexico border. There's always talk about how bad it is along the border, but not much how to address the issues. How would you tackle this dilemma as a member of Congress?
Congress controls the purse strings of every department, and I would hope that Congress would use that leverage to seal the border. And that's really the only way the problem will be solved is close the border. Anyone that came to this country illegally is entitled to nothing. The ones that are waiting in the line, that have done the paperwork and waiting to become U.S. citizens, letting others cut in front of the line in front of them it's not what an organized government would do. I have friends that live down in the valley, and they say it's what you see on the news is nothing compared to what they deal with. And they're worried, to let their families, let their kids out and play, go ride horses, whatever. It's changed the dynamic in South Texas, and it's working its way north.
So closing the border is your solution to that?
Close the border. No one comes in unless you come legally.
Another point that you've emphasized is term limits. What is your idea of a term limit? Because a lot of folks that are challenging incumbents always kind of bring this up. Tell me your idea of this.
I think Congress should be 3 terms, 6 years, and then you go home to your life and your business. I think our founders, when they set up this ingenious system, didn't see that it would be a career where someone could go into Congress and come out a multimillionaire a few years later. I think if term limits would solve so much. I think the new faces, the new turnaround, and new ideas every 6 years. I will commit to 6 years. If I'm blessed enough by the people of this district to be put in that office, it'll be 6 years, and I would hope to endorse someone of my, that champions the same issues I do.
Winning Abilene in the big country is one thing, when it comes to this race, but winning Lubbock in that area of the South Plains is truly another. Do you think you have enough to relate to the folks up in the Panhandle as well?
I believe so. I have a lot of friends up there, and one of my boys is going to school there right now, and we're having Vance going there this Friday, and we'll be working the district. And mathematically, we have to have a decent piece of Lubbock to, get past the 50%. And the buzz I'm getting from people we've visited with in Lubbock, it's looking pretty good. We went to a recent Lubbock Republican Party meeting, the Lincoln-Reagan dinner, and we were working the room, and people were whispering me, shaking my hand, "Thank you for running. I appreciate you running." So,
last question, and feel free to look into this far camera over here. Why should the folks here in District 19 in these 33 counties select you and not the incumbent?
Well, I'm a lifelong Republican. I've lived in this district all but 6 years of my life when I went to high school and college out of state. I've seen our district, I felt, has been ignored for way too long. The incumbent moved to DC in 2017 and hasn't looked back. And I think the career politicians need to take a look in the mirror and then see what's happening to our country and act with a little more urgency. And that's what got me in this race, is I don't want to see things that are obviously fixable and definitely wrong go unchecked. And that goes from everything from the men and women's bathrooms to unfettered open borders to, it's in the assault on free speech. I never thought in my lifetime that you could throw somebody in jail for making a meme, or that someone, tech oligarchs, could tell you what you could say. Yeah. And everything, whether pick an issue, it all stems from free speech. That's why it was first in the Bill of Rights, and it's everything hinges on that.
Mr. Boyd, thank you so much for taking time with us, making time for us today.
Well, thanks for having me in. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, sir. All right, for Mr. Vance Boyd, candidate for District 19 U.S. Congress, I am Manny Diaz. This has been another Sunday Conversation right here on Big Country Politics. We'll see you next time. God bless.